All right, here we are again, sitting with Captain Marty. We're going to hear another one of his fantastic stories. Marty, what do you have for us today? Tell us your story today. What are you working with?
Do you like banana pudding?
Oh, I love a good bowl of banana pudding. I don't know who doesn't. I love it. Do you love it?
That's a good point. I got in a lot of trouble eating banana pudding one time. I'll tell you how, and I'll tell you a story about our local boat shops and some banana pudding in just a moment.
Teachers Lair Marina in Hatteras Village is the closest spot on the Outer Banks to the Gulf Stream. Just inside Hatteras Inlet, Teachers Lair is fully loaded with bait, tackle, ice, snacks, and drinks for your fun-filled day out on the water. Want to get rigged up to catch the big one? Lee and the gang in the tackle shop can outfit you to catch whatever is eager to get hooked. To see the marina, the tackle shop, or to book a charter, go online to teacheslair.com. Teachers Lair Marina in Hatteras Village. Your fishing venture awaits.
Real. That's the first word that comes to mind when I think about Outland Seafood in Mans Harbor. Yeah, they're the first and last place you see coming to and leaving the Outer Banks on Highway 64 in Dare County, but they're also real when it comes to fresh local seafood. Troy Outland, real. Curtis and Josh, real. The indoor crab shedders, real. Stop by and see for yourself right next to White Shopping Center and check them out on social media. Outland Seafood in Mans Harbor, real. All right, Marty, you said you got in trouble eating banana pudding?
I got in big trouble.
How does that work?
And before we get to our story, let me just tell you, remember there used to be a restaurant in Maine called Doug Saul's.
Saul's Barbecue.
Yeah.
Yes, they had great banana pudding.
And they always had it in a big tray.
Big pan, yes.
So one day we got in there early and a crew of us working somewhere, just like so many working, going there at lunch.
Right.
Brand new banana pudding, untouched.
Oh. Had
a big silver spoon stuck right in the middle of it.
Nice.
Now, what would that say to you if the big silver spoon was stuck right in the middle of it? So I went over there and scooped out a big scoop from the middle of the banana pudding.
Yeah.
Put it on my plate. And got my other buffet and went in there and sit down and we're eating. And that waitress that used to work there, who was not known for being very cordial, she come in there and she said, "Did you dig out of the middle of the banana pudding?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's where the spoon was." And she's like, "Don't you know you never start in the middle with a banana pudding? You start at the corner." Did you know that?
I honestly didn't know that.
You would have
got
them. You would have scooped right out of the middle.
I would have, yes.
Anyway, but I got she was unhappy, and she did not get any tip from me that day because she was downright rude.
Oh my gosh!
But I've since been to other places, and buddy, if it's a brand new banana pudding, I'm starting at the corner.
Starting at the corner. Okay, a little tip from Captain Marty: do not start in the middle.
And Justin, it was actually that same restaurant many versions earlier. A lot of people have been in and out of there, but they had a little lunch restaurant there. The same lady that used to do the one down at Ormond's.
Okay, yes.
Back in the day. And a little diner. So one day in the boat shop, this is a story, Captain Mike Merritt, who we all know as Bubblegum, Big Al, Allan Foreman, Country Girl.
Yes.
Tony Tillett, Lee Perry. Now, Lee Perry's somebody, I tell more stories about Lee Perry than any other person I tell out of my hundreds of stories. He was in there, and Lee Perry, he was a great finish carpenter in these old charter boat shops. But if you looked at his hands, it looked like he'd sawed every finger off, like at the first knuckle. You couldn't believe, and he had them all wrapped up in bandages. You couldn't believe a man like that could do that kind of carpentry work, but he could.
Wow.
But he also had very thick Coke bottle glasses. He ran the oldest boat in the fleet. He went through more mates than any captain in the history of Oregon Inlet. But he was dearly loved. He was cantankerous and ornery, and that's part of what gave him his appeal to everybody else. And people would tease him all the time. And around the docks, he always cut open watermelons. Every summer, a hot day of fishing, he'd go up in the fish house in the cooler, and he'd put half a dozen watermelons in there. He'd bring them out, lay them on top of the pile, and cut them in half with a big old stake and a Forstner staking knife, 10 inches long, 12-inch, big old curved blade.
Yeah, oh yeah.
All right, and so he'd cut that watermelon, and everybody'd stop by and get a slice of ice cold watermelon, and he would be telling about his days of fishing, and his hands would be all wet from the water. He's holding a big old knife.
Right, yeah.
And he'd start using that as a pointer and waving it back and forth while he's telling, "I caught this blue ball," and everybody, you just had to take a couple steps back.
Right.
To make sure that thing didn't come flying out of his hand. So that's who Lee Perry was. The Deepwater was his boat. In the wintertime, in the old days of the backyard boat shops, same one that I spent my first few years in, a lot of locals will not realize on Candela Drive in Manio, about the third or fourth lot down on the right, Omie had a boat shop, Omie Tillett. And in that boat shop, they built 7, I think it was, total charter boats. And on this particular one, they were actually building the Carolinian for his little brother, Tony Tillett, the new Carolinian. That boat is now called the Rigged Up that Charles Haywood runs.
Right.
Still around, still doing great. Anyway, one day they all decided to go to lunch. It's actually not all of them. Mike Merritt, Captain Mike, Big Al, and Tony, I think, those 3 decided they're going into that little diner and have some lunch. So they went in there. Lee Perry, Bobby Sullivan, Omie, others, they stayed and ate around the wood stove, sitting on a log in the shop. Well, when they were down there eating lunch, they had the banana pudding, And I think it was Mike Merritt that came up with the idea. He got a pint of it to go and pulled all the vanilla wafers out of it and just threw them away. He had this plan in mind, and he said, we're going to go back and we're going to fool Lee Perry into thinking this is epoxy glue, because it looks just like,
Yes, it does. It so does.
It looks exactly like banana pudding. So they all get back to the boat shop. The group that had stood around the wood stove is getting up, putting on their nail aprons. They're over at the glue machine, which is 2 hand pumps. It pumps the hardener and the resin, and then you thicken it. Once you thicken the glue, that's when it looks like banana pudding. And that's what everywhere wood touches wood on these boats you see nowadays, right? That's West System epoxy glue.
Epoxy hardener.
And the wood will break before the glue joint breaks. That's how tough that stuff is. So these guys come in from going to the diner with their pint of altered banana pudding, no vanilla wafers. And they go over there, and when Lee Perry, Deepwater, everybody was called by their boat names, when he wasn't looking, they slid that thing kind of like in line to be the next glue pot to be filled.
And the joke that ensues is a classic one for the ages. Stay right here. We'll be right back.
What could possibly be more fun than watching a bottlenose dolphin swim and play in the water right beside you? Hop aboard Harbor Star Dolphin Tours at Wanchese Marina and witness this remarkable animal up close. The Harbor Star is a spacious 50-foot vessel with a wide, shady canopy that runs 2-hour trips multiple times a day, including a breathtaking sunset cruise. To book your tour, go online to wanchesemarina.com and click Harbor Star Dolphin Tours. See the majestic bottlenose dolphin up close with Harbor Star Dolphin Tours.
Well, Big Al this is where Big Al, and he was called Big Al. He was small, small frame guy. So he comes up there and he makes sure he's elbow to elbow with Lee Perry, and he says, Lee, boy, this epoxy glue, it looks good enough to eat. It looks just like banana pudding. And Lee had a lisp, and I'm not making fun of that. This is what gave him his character. And he called everybody old boy, and he said, old boy, you can't eat that. It'll kill you. And Big Al just played it up. And everybody was kind of in on the joke except for Lee. And he said, no, he got a wooden stir stick like you stir the glue up with, but he made sure it was a clean new one.
Yes,
So he's stirring what is really, truly banana pudding. Standing next to Lee stirring what is really epoxy glue. And it looks just like it. And Big Al said, I know you could eat it. That stuff looks good enough to eat. And so Lee Perry kept saying, oh boy, if you eat that glue, it's going to kill you dead. It's going to kill you dead. Don't you eat that glue. So Big Al takes that flat little glue stick. You remember him.
Oh, yeah.
Scoops up a big old mouthful of it, puts it in his mouth, and eats it up and says, man, you really can't eat it. It's really good. And he said through those thick glasses that Lee wore, his eyes were like saucers, just giant, like, oh boy, you're going to die now. And he said, no, really, Lee, it's okay. And he took another big scoop and ate it. And then it was kind of like time for everybody to get to work, and Lee was just pretty much speechless. So, of course, Big Al starts to walk with his fake glue, which is really banana pudding.
Yeah.
He starts to walk over to his workstation. They were planking. A lot of gluing goes on when you're planking.
Right.
He walks over there, and about halfway across the floor of that shop, he just falls out to the floor and goes into convulsion, starts kicking and flopping all around on the floor and everything,
That's so funny.
And so Lee Perry, and not concerned too much about Al dying on the floor from eating epoxy, which was really banana pudding, walks over, straddles him, stands over top of him and says, "Oh boy, I told you so.
I told you.
I told you so. I told you was going to die." That was his only concern, was to prove his point.
Prove his point. Yeah. Wow.
And so that was one of the best stories of the legendary backyard boat shops. Both of those guys going on to the great grass line in the sky, but the stories you can tell about either one. Thank you for letting me share it.